and welcome to the School of Cloud. Now, the School of Cloud event series this week has Build and Secure Networks. This is the first week of our 3-week quest about networking. Now, the hosts today are Jeff Williams, that's me. I'm the Google Tech Lead over at UC Berkeley, and Elaine Chan. She's a student at Western Michigan University. What we're doing with the School of Cloud is we're learning this year BigQuery, and then Google Cloud Basics. After that, we moved on to learn about networking. And finally, we're going to finish out with Google Cloud Logging. And these topics were chosen in order on purpose. After we get through these, we're going to have a whole nother semester of classes in the next quarter. So we'll have additional ones that'll be posted. So this is for January, February, and March. And in April, we're going to start some additional things as well. But anyway, our topic is GCP, and we're going to try to learn Google Cloud Platform, GCP, bit by bit, week by week during this year, so that you can go from not knowing what GCP is to knowing a whole lot about it and being ready for some GCP-related jobs. Now, Google Cloud Platform is one of the 3 big clouds. The others are AWS, which is Amazon Web Services, and Azure, which is Microsoft's cloud. Basically, these clouds are using the spare capacity from these big companies. They only are busy certain times of the year, and other times not as busy. So they started this idea of renting out their extra computing space, computing power on their servers. Amazon pioneered this because they needed servers a lot during the shopping holiday called Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. And that day they needed lots and lots of capacity, but they didn't need as much anytime else in the year. So they had the idea that they should sell some of their extra capacity. That idea caught on, and now the whole industry is moving this way to using computing power by paying for just the time you need on big servers and on these large numbers of servers, instead of having to buy and have your own servers and your own data centers and your own networks and so many different things. When we look at GCP, it's split into 4 big areas. Compute, which is processing. Like if you want to spin up a server where you can run some job or operation. Storage, things like Bigtable, Cloud SQL, databases, basically, and storage for just hosting files. Big data, which are ways to process the data that you've got and to find details that are in that data and to transform it from one format to another, to filter it, to get more value out of it. And machine learning, so that you can feed some of your data over to Google's algorithms and then get answers back. Like, what is this? Or what does this look like? What does this say? What does this sound like? Translating things. Lots of neat things you can do with GCP, and that's why it's one of the fastest growing clouds. Now, this event is on Wednesdays, but we also have events that are planned. In the future, starting in April, we're going to have a data engineering class on Monday nights. And there's weekly interview practice we're doing to help people get ready for tech job interviews. That's on Saturdays. So you can learn more later on. Now, the quest that we start today, we're trying to get this badge here, the Networking in Google Cloud Completion badge. And that's this quest 31 that we're going to be working on first. Now, this other one, Build and Secure Networks, has 1 extra lab. So if you just do 1 extra lab, a challenge lab, then you can earn this other badge as well. So we've got 2 labs each night for 3 weeks. And on this other one, there's also 6 labs, and only 1 of them is a different lab, not in the first one. So 1 extra lab, and you get a whole second badge that you can put on your LinkedIn. And that one, because it's a challenge lab, it's a little bit more difficult. So then you can show that you completed a difficult challenge. Now let's go and get started. So to start, we're going to go to the top of the Networking in Google Cloud quest. That's this quest 31, which is dropped in the chat already. So if you start with that, log in and head down to this user authentication Identity Aware Proxy lab. That's the first one we're going to do. Now, this lab, like all of the labs, I like to look through first to see what they're asking for, to make sure that I've got covered, that I am ready for the things that they're going to ask me to do. So in this lab, we're going to learn about Google's Identity Aware Proxy, IAP. And we're going to set up a service on Google App Engine. And this will be a service written in Python. And then we'll use this proxy in front of that service to secure that service. So the service itself doesn't check to see who the user is. And we're going to put the proxy in front to have Google check and see who is that user and are they allowed to get to this service or not. And you can imagine having a service where you have a paying user and you want someone to help check to see if that user is on the list of people who paid and not someone else that didn't pay, for example. So we're going to learn how to put a simple App Engine app into the cloud. We're going to learn how to enable and disable the Identity Aware Proxy. And we'll do some more things with the Identity Aware Proxy to make it even stronger. So we'll restrict access to it. We'll find out who the user is that's trying to visit it, and we'll find a way to prevent someone from pretending to be that user. So the beginning of the lab is like many of the other labs we've already done, where they have us log into the Google Cloud Console and go to the Cloud Shell. They're going to have us download some code, open that, and change to that folder, review the code, and deploy it to App Engine. Okay, we'll turn on the Identity Aware Proxy. We'll configure it. Now this has a lot of details. We're going to have to be careful when we put in these details. Okay. After that, we'll turn on Identity Aware Proxy and we'll check that it's working. We'll give some permissions to a user to let them be able to get in even when we've got the Identity Aware Proxy turned on. And we'll deploy that to App Engine, that version. And then we'll see that it knows who we are. So that'll be fun. And that'll get us a lot of the points. Now, to know about the points thing, over on the right-hand side here, you can see the different checkpoints. So deploying the app, that gets us 20 points. Turning on IAP, 30 points. So that'll be 50 points. We'll be halfway there. Accessing the user identity information, 25 more. And that's about where we are right now in the lab. And there's 25 more if we turn on cryptographic verification. And the very last part, and here it is to do that. And that's the step 3. And when we do that, we'll deploy that version and we'll check it out and we'll find and do some tests with that. Now, all of these, you see that they're using an incognito window. So we're going to use an incognito window also when we're doing this lab. And that looks like it's going to be a pretty simple one. So it's 22 minutes after the hour right now. It says it's 1 hour. I bet we'll get done in about 40 minutes or less with this first one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Start Lab, and then I'll start this lab. Now, it says reCAPTCHA. Let's see. Oh, I have to enable scripts. I'll trust this page temporarily. And I'll open an incognito window. And that's where I'm going to do the work for this lab. Okay. So I'll hit Start Lab. I'll prove that I'm not a robot. Let's see. Click all of the traffic lights. That barely has some traffic lights in it. Let's see if they agree. Now, which one is vehicles? That's part of a vehicle, but it's not much of a vehicle. Maybe they'll, okay. Now, if it says use credits, click to use credits. But if it says use subscription, use subscription. It'll be different based on if you have or don't have yet a monthly subscription. Okay, now it's provisioned a user account and password for us to use. Now it says open Google Console. Well, I want to open that, but I want to open that in incognito. I already have an incognito window, so I'll copy that address and I'll paste it in the incognito window. If you didn't have an incognito already, then you could right-click and choose Open in Incognito window. Now it preloaded the username, so I'm just going to copy the password because I know it's going to ask for that next. Now I'll hit next right now. And I'll make this window a little bit skinnier. And I'll paste in the password. Some of the things, if the screen is too skinny, some of the controls will be hidden in this interface, and you have to look for them on a three-dot menu, like this three-dot menu here. Luckily, this is just wide enough, so the Activate Cloud Shell button that we need is right there. And that's the next thing to do, is to activate the Cloud Shell. That opens up here, and I'll scroll down and find the instructions. Okay. Now, I know myself, I know that it's going to be right, that it's going to work, because I see that it's got this yellow part with the project ID and the student name is right. Usually the problem people could have at the beginning would be if they used their own account instead of using the provided student account. But this is the student account, so that's going to be fine. I'm going to copy the instruction. And I know it's going to work. It's going to let us know. And see, this is the reason why they have it. Just run it, is to authorize that. It's going to let us know, look, that the account that's active is this student account. And that's right. We can run the other one too. And that's going to tell us this Quick Labs GCP ID there, the project ID. And that came up too. So next command is to download the code. And that's the code that we're going to use in the lab. So we'll download that. And I'll get ready to unzip it as well. So this copies the code from Google Cloud Storage from this certain bucket to the folder that I'm in right now. That's what this dot means, like to the current folder. And then we'll unzip that, and then we'll go into that folder. So it looks like that downloaded. So I'll paste in this, and then I'll CD in there. Okay, that's working. Now, it says to go into that folder. So I'll copy and paste that CD command, and now we're in the folder. Now that we're in the folder, I'll type ls to list the files that are in there. And you can see app.yaml, main.py, requirements.txt, and the templates folder. Let's take a look at that main.py. They suggested here that we might want to look at it, and they told us to use cat. If you use cat, that's going to show the file contents, but it doesn't show them in a pretty way. And what I mean by that is there's no color coding. Now, if you instead used vim and then main.py like this, then you'll see it with color coding. And you can look in that file and you can see what it's doing. So it's a Python program, and it's using Flask, which is a web-related library that helps you write web applications. And you can say what to do when people visit different addresses. If they visit /, then run index.html template and say hello. And if they go to the privacy route, so then show the privacy policy. All right, sounds good. And it has some other information down there. Now to leave vim, if you opened it that way, you can do hit escape and then hit the colon and then hit Q and hit enter, and that'll get you out of vim. So there's that. So we took a look at that file. Now they're saying we should deploy it to App Engine. This step takes a couple minutes, so we should get that started as soon as possible. So I'll start that deploy, and that is going to ask us which server location we want to use, which zone region we want to put it in. And it has to be one that says supports standard. Now, all of these say they support standard. So I'll choose US Central 1, US Central there. Number 17. Choose the one that's closest to where you are. And then it's going to ask me a yes/no question. Right? It hasn't asked me yet, but when it asks the yes/no question, I'll have to enter Y to mean yes, and I'll hit enter. Now, in the meantime, I can go look and see if there are any questions in the chat. No questions? Perfect. So I'll come back to the lab. Okay, now it says, do you want to continue? Yes. Okay, and now it's finally getting ready. So it was preparing the project, and now it's deploying that service by uploading the files to Google Cloud Storage, and then it's going to have the App Engine service run those files. Okay. In a few minutes, the deployment completes. So this step takes a little while, but that's okay. Then we're going to go and we're going to open that app. We'll try it out. They already told us the URL it's going to have, though, so we can, on our own, take a look at this early. I'll click this and see what happens. Well, nothing happened yet. So let's see. I'll copy that address. Oops. Oh, no. I hit Control-C to be copy, but Control-C canceled that deploy. So I'm going to deploy it again. And I'll say continue. Uh-oh. So maybe that's caused a problem. We'll see. I'll go and try that address and see if it actually uploaded. And it uploaded already. So it was not a problem. I hit Control-C at that exact moment. Cool. All right, so that looks just like the example. Let's see, and you can see here, step one. All right, so it looks like we've recovered. Now, if we get the 20 points, excellent. So we'll be fine. Now we're going to restrict access by using the Identity Aware Proxy. To get there, we come back to this page here. I'm going to make some room, though. Push this Cloud Shell down there. So we've got space, and we're going to find the Identity Aware Proxy on the Security menu. So hit the navigation menu, and then head down to Security and Identity Aware Proxy. It's right there. It's the fifth one down. Now, it's not enabled, and it says that we can enable it. So that's what you want to do. And then we're going to configure the consent screen. This is the part that I said there's a lot of detail we have to get just right. So let's go to the Identity Aware Proxy, configure consent screen, this button right here. And if your screen is wider, it'll be on the side. If your screen is skinnier, it'll be right here in the middle. And at the end of working with the consent screen, we'll close this window, but this tab, but we're not going to do that yet. Okay, it says click internal and then create. So this will be an internal app just for use by this test account. And I'll set the app name. Not every field gets copied over exactly. Now this one says get your student email. There it is. Perfect. I also want to copy this for later if it'll let me. Will it let me? No. Oh, good, that worked. That did work. So I've got that for later. Because down here, we have to put the email address. So I'll paste that email address down the bottom. This is a little trick that I learned from last time. So if you've got that email there, you need that email again at the very bottom too. So you could put that in at the bottom by copying this and pasting it down there. Or you can get it by scrolling up in the lab to get to the part at the top where they gave us that username, that email address rather. Now the URL. The URL comes from this page over here. Let's get this one. That's the URL. Copy that. Come over here and paste that in application homepage. Okay. Authorized domains. It says that domain isn't authorized. Well, that's a domain I want to authorize. I'll copy that one. I'll hit add domain. I'll paste that in. Okay, now what else? Privacy page is the same link with /privacy at the end. Okay, so I'll copy the link. I'll paste it there and we'll put privacy, P-R-I-V-A-C-Y. Okay, and I think that's everything. We don't need the terms of service link. It's not required anyway. I've got the domain, which is just this part without the HTTPS and without the slash. Pasted that in there, and I pasted the student email address from up above. So I've got the things on this page done. So I'm gonna hit save and continue. And now on this page, also hit save and continue, this scopes page. And on the last one, for summary, it says click back to dashboard. But you can first double check that all of this information looks right. And it does. Privacy, student email is the same as the contact email, the authorized domain. Okay, now we don't need this tab anymore. So I'll go back to this tab here. And then I'm going to reload this tab. Let's see. I'll click on something else and then I'll go click back. And that should get me there. Now, run this to disable the Flex API. G-Cloud Services Disable App Engine Flex. All right. So that needs the Cloud Shell. So I'll make it a little bigger and I'll paste this command in there. And that finished successfully. All right. So we're doing okay. We made it past that Control C issue we had. Next, it says to enable IAP under the App Engine app there. So App Engine app, IAP is off, and here's a toggle switch. And I'm going to click to toggle that on. It says turn on. Okay. Now IAP has been turned on for the App Engine app. And that's exactly what we wanted. Okay. Now that it's on, we want to go back and test this page here and see if this is still working. Now it's making me sign in. Sign in with the account we used to log into the console, this student account. You don't have access. So that Identity Aware Proxy is sitting in front of our app now, and it's enforcing access control. And that's perfect. That's exactly what we wanted to have happen. All right. Now we want to go back, and what are we going to do? We're going to enable access to the App Engine app for the QuickLabs student email account. So, all right, it says we need to add to that. Now, to add to it, looks like we're gonna have to go over to the side, aren't we? Let's see exactly what it says to do. Oh, it wants us to select the checkbox next to the App Engine app. There you go. That was the trick. I remember we did something like that yesterday. Okay, so check this checkbox. Then that opens this panel here, and we can scroll down, just like in the example. Add principal. That's this button here. That means like add a user that's going to have access to this app. And then the user we want to add is our student account. Let's see. Oh, I don't have that one. Don't have that one in my copy paste buffer right now. So what do I want to do? Oh no. So I got to go get that. So I'll come over here, and I wonder if I have the whole email address up at the beginning. I think I do. Yeah, I've got that there, the student account at quicklabs.net, or you could copy it from the instructions up at the top where we first got that and put that in. So I'm going to add principal, and in this box here, I'll paste in student. Yep, that's the one. For role, it says we should choose Cloud IAP Secure Web App User. Cloud IAP Secured Web User. Looks right. Now, anything else? Click Save. Okay. Now, after I hit check my progress, I should get to 50 points because this step was worth 30 points, I think. I remember that. Enable and add a policy. So that should show up pretty soon. Now, next is to test our access. So to test our access, they want us to go back to the page, but add this clear login cookie. So that's this page here. I want to add clear login cookie to the end of that address. And now we've got the 50 points. So we're halfway there. Okay, paste this clear login cookie. Oh, good. Okay, so now it says we've got a new sign-in screen. Do not click the account. Instead, click Use Another Account and re-enter your credentials. Okay. Well, gosh, I wish I had saved that username. I've got it down here. I'll copy the username, or the email address rather. Paste that in. Now the password is going to be up at the top. So I'm going to go way up to the top to get that. Copy the password, paste it here, hit next. Okay, and it let me in because I'm on the right list now, and I wasn't before. Let's see. So it let me in because it checked my access and because I was on the list. So that's great. That's working. Copy this. I'm going to go back over here, down to the Cloud Shell, make it big again, and scroll to the bottom of that Cloud Shell. Now we're going to paste in. Okay, paste that in. And that's going to change the folder we're in to be the second of the 3 steps. And we're going to deploy that version as well. So that version's a little different than the first one. It takes a while, so they want us to get started and deploy it as soon as possible. I'll hit yes and enter. And it's going to deploy it to the same place as the last one. So that's going to replace the current version with a new version. And it says that'll take a few minutes. Now, in the meantime, we're going to go and we're going to be looking at main.py and index.html. Or actually, they're showing us the 2 special lines right here for main.py and the index.html. Here's the 1 special line. So in that script, they added the user email and the user ID, and it's going to get those from the request headers. So when the request comes into Google, the Identity Aware Proxy is going to add in some headers to that request and then send it on to our app. And it's going to include in there the authenticated user email and the authenticated user ID number. And then it's going to add those to the template. It's going to print the index with the email and the ID number added in. Now, we didn't have that before, but we're going to have that on this new version. And it's going to say, hello, email, your persistent ID is ID. So we'll take a look at that as soon as it's ready. It looks like it's ready. Now it says we can hit gcloud app browse, but I could see that's the same URL as before. So I can just go to the tab we already have open, and I can just hit reload. And there it goes. So hello, accounts.google.com student at quicklabs.net. Your persistent ID is this ID number. This is step 2. So now we've got 75 points out of 100. We're doing great on this lab. Now, we're going to turn off Identity Aware Proxy and see if it lets us in. Now, to do that, we go back to this part in the middle here. Now, this is a kind of a skinny window, so it's hard to see. Scroll over to this IAP. We're going to turn off IAP right here. And it's, are you sure you want to do that? Yeah, I'm sure, because the instructions told me to. Okay, so IAP has been turned off for App Engine, this App Engine app. And it says we will be warned, and we did. So now all users can get to the app with no limits. Well, let's take a look and see what that looks like. So right now it has the old one where it says it has the email address and the ID number working just fine. Let's hit enter. Oh, hello, none. Your persistent ID is none. So now we don't have any protection for our app. Now it tells us how we can check how we can send requests that are fake, and we can tell it what user email we are. So when we do that, we're going to change. It's going to change this none to just a fake email. To do that, we have to add our URL to this command and then run this command. This curl command goes and it's like a web browser that doesn't, it's like a plain text web browser. So it's going to go to the page that we ask for, and it's going to do the thing we ask and get back the web page that results. So that'll be something we do in the Cloud Shell. Okay, so I'm going to copy this command, but I'm going to have to edit that part. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy the first part. Copy. I'll paste that over here. Then I'm going to put in the address, this web address for the app. I'm going to paste that. And then I'm going to put in the rest of this command here with the -H. Copy that. Paste that. Okay, now when I hit enter, it's going to use the curl web browser to go and fetch this page, get this page, and it's going to say, it's going to pretend to say totally fake email. And here where it says hello, and it's supposed to say your ID, hello none, now it says hello totally fake email. So bad users can fool our web app now into thinking that they're somebody else that they're not supposed to be. So that's not how we want it to work. We don't want that to work when Identity Aware Proxy is off. We want to still be protected. So we need to make our app a little bit smarter. Now, we're going to add a third request header that will cryptographically sign an object that has the user identity data. And if it doesn't match the signature that's expected, then it's not going to work. So we're going to deploy a new version of the app that doesn't let this trouble happen. So I'll change to that folder, folder 3, and quickly deploy it, which is basically taking the code that's in this version 3 folder and uploading that to Google App Engine Service. So then Google's going to run that code for us, and they're going to handle all of the details about keeping it running. Once that's uploaded, then we'll check our progress, and we'll get to then we'll get to 100 points. And then we're going to take a look at what's different, and we'll test it out. So this takes a couple minutes, say in a few minutes. All right, now let's go try that out. So I'll hit enter to refresh, and awesome. So it thinks we're none and none. That's good. Now they're going to have us do some testing, and we're at 100 points. So that's excellent. Now to do the testing, they're going to have us, let's see, take a look at this new user function. The new user function there gets this new Google IP JWT assertion. That's a Java web token. That's something that a lot of this stuff that we've seen today is stuff that you might work with, you might not, depends on what your role is going to be. This is Python code. You might not be dealing with Python code if you're, depending on which job you're going to have in relation to the cloud. But the web developers, they'll need to use something like this when they're working on their web application that they're working on for you. Because they'll want to check and make sure that the token that's presented is valid and matches, matches up just right. Because they're going to validate and decode the data, and they'll make sure that the data is accurate so that no one was faking and trying to pretend to be someone else. Okay, so we already actually took a look at it. I already did that in this other tab, so we're ahead of the curve. Down here, it tells us to turn Identity Aware Proxy back on. All right. Now you can see this button here. I'm just going to show you. See App Engine App. Here in the middle column where it says IAP, we're going to flip this toggle to on. And it's going to only allow the users listed in the permission panel. Yep, that's what we want. Now, if you were working on a real app, you'll probably have a lot of users. So you'll probably want to have those users set up here. And part of your onboarding workflow will have a page that allows strangers to pay and gain access or register so that they can be on the list of people who have access to whatever the paid app that you're creating. So that's just going to be part of the deal. Let's see. Okay, now they want us to try refreshing the page again. Now I didn't do it too quickly because I know it might take a little while. Yep, and that was quick. It says, hello, this user, your persistent ID is that. And your verified email is this, and your verified ID is that. Now, it looks like they have exactly the email now, instead of having this accounts.google.com part in front of it. And that's what they told us is going to happen. If you do it the verified way, it won't have that prefix. Okay, so if the IAP is turned off or bypassed, this verified data won't be there. So you've got a way that you'll be able to check to see if the person attempting to use your site, if they're actually verified or not. Because those headers, they could just pretend. But when you verify the headers with that encrypted token, cryptographic token, then they can't fool you. So they won't get into your web app if they're not supposed to. So congratulations, we completed it. We got 100 points, and we deployed an App Engine web application. Before tonight, you might not have ever deployed an App Engine web application, and tonight you deployed one 3 times. I had a little mistake there, and I tried to deploy it 4 times, but it still worked out just fine. So we got 100 points. We're done. So we go up to the top, and we hit End Lab. Now, if you didn't finish yet, don't hit End Lab yet. I'm going to hit End Lab on mine, and then I'm going to help you if you have any problems with yours. Okay, and I'm going to say 5 out of 5, good lab, and submit. This one is, so if we go back to this page, we completed this first lab. I'm going to hit the back arrow, and then that'll bring us back to the networking in Google Cloud Quest. Okay. And the next one is a networking one. Now this one has a lot of parts. We're going to have 3 different networks, and we're going to connect the networks together by having virtual machines that can talk to all 3. And we're going to do some attempts to connect between the different networks, and we'll use firewall rules to allow or prevent some of the machines from talking to each other. So we're going to set up a lot of virtual machines, and we'll set up some networks and sub-networks. Some of this terminology might be new to you. This might be the first time you've worked with things about networks. So don't get discouraged. It's going to be all right. What you're learning today is to get some of the vocabulary, to get a little bit more familiar with the vocabulary that networking people use, so that then you have some things that you can go and explore to learn more about networking. So that's what we're going to be doing. So multiple VPC networks is our next lab, and it starts now. Now, like I did on the last lab, I'm going to look through first before I started. Now, here's the network diagram that we're going to be working in. So you can see that there's 2 regions up here, and they have the same color. They're called MyNet EU and MyNet US. Okay, and this whole VPC network is called MyNet. And then here's a VPC network called Management. And here's a VPC network called Private Net. So we're going to set up virtual machines in Private Net, and we'll create subnetworks for WET Europe and US. And we're going to set up a network for a management subnet. And we're going to, let's see, we're going to have VMs, virtual machines in Europe and in US up here as well. So we're going to end up with at least 4 different VMs, virtual machines. And one of them is going to have 3 different network cards so that it can talk to all 3 of the different networks. And that's going to be kind of fun. And from there we're going to try to connect to these different networks and to test out how this stuff works. And we're going to have firewall rules protecting each of these networks from each other. And we'll learn a lot about networks in this lab. So I'm looking forward to working on this one with you guys. Now, we're going to create a custom VPC network with firewall rules. We'll create VM instances using Compute Engine. So those are virtual machines like servers that in the cloud, but just take a big server, divide it into smaller pieces. We're going to set up and run some of those smaller pieces on servers here in US and in Europe. And then we'll connect between those different servers, and we'll create a virtual machine that has multiple network interfaces. That's this one here that's got 3 different networks on it. That one's kind of fun. That will be at the end. That's this last step before the congratulations at the end. Now, the goals they've got for us are many. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different checkpoints in this lab. And we're going to get started so that we can get this done. So at the beginning, they're going to give us credentials like before, and we're going to open that in an incognito window. And then, let's see, we'll activate Google Cloud Shell with this button here. We'll do the same stuff like last time to start. Then we're going to go into the networking section in the navigation menu and down to VPC networks. So we didn't do that before. Once we're there, we make a network. Then we're going to put some limits on it of where you can access it from. Let's see, so we'll do private network as well. So we're going to make the management network, then we'll make the private network. And we'll take a look at them. They'll look like that. Then we'll do the firewall rules. There it is. And we'll put firewall rules for private net and management net. And then we'll create the virtual machines, the servers in each of those places. And we'll do those 2 different ways as well. So we're going to end up doing a lot of stuff on the command line and a lot of stuff in the user interface. And then we'll start connecting and pinging from one server to the next to test that the network is working and that the firewall rules that we made are allowing everything. And we'll find some that don't work, but that'll be on purpose because they'll be on different networks and not supposed to be able to connect. And then we'll create the virtual machine that can talk to all 3 of the networks. And we'll explore a little bit about that. All right, and now this lab is part of 3 different quests. So it's kind of a 3-for-1 deal. You take this lab once and you get credit in each of these 3 quests for it. So without further ado, I'm going to head back up to the top here. I'm going to hit Start Lab. Okay, I'll prove that I'm not a robot. Okay, crosswalks. Good, I'd use subscription. Okay, now I'm going to right click on this and choose Open Link in Incognito Window this time. And then I'm going to make this window be half size and the other window can be the other half. The username is there, 04. I want that password, so I'll copy the password, I'll hit next, and I'll paste in the password. Okay, now when this happens, we are supposed to say accept, but we're not supposed to add any recovery options or sign up for any free trials. Okay, check this checkbox for the terms of service, then hit agree and continue. I'll make that window a little bit wider so we can see a little bit more in there. Okay, activate the Cloud Shell. That's the button up here. Hit continue. That'll take a minute to open. And then we're going to run this gcloud auth list command, and it's going to ask us for permission. And we will grant it the permission that it wants. Paste that command in. Authorize. And you can see the student account is there. We might need that later, so it's good to have it. And then we're going to do gcloud config list project to list all the projects we have. There should just be one. It should be the project that we're on right now, this Quick Labs project. And you can also see that here in the project info up here. So that's good. Now we're going to go over and create the VPC networks. So navigation menu, it's up here. Networking. Well, they've got it, they pinned it for us, so it's right here. But if you didn't have that pinned, then you would scroll down until you got to networks. There's a lot of different options in here. When you got down to networking, it's the top one, and there it is, VPC networks. The default and my networks should be there already. Yep. So we're going to add the management net. Okay, copy that. So create VPC network. There's a button here that says create VPC network. So I'll click it. Paste that as the name. Okay. Now subnet, it said choose custom. Custom. The name should be management subnet US. There'll probably be a EU one after this. US Central 1 region. That's in Iowa. And then there's the IP address range. Paste that in. Oops. Paste. Then hit done. Then click equivalent command line. Okay. And that shows us what they're gonna run to set this up. They're gonna make a network and they're gonna make a subnet. The network they're gonna create is called management net, and the subnet they're gonna create is called management subnet, and it's part of the management net network. Okay, I'll hit close. And then it says click create. That's this blue button. Now you noticed I skipped a lot of details because there's a lot of those details that we don't need to worry about. The most important things are the things that they're having us configure. Now I'll check my progress and I should end up with 10 points. It hasn't finished yet, but in a moment it'll finish and then it'll be fine. And there we go. We got the green check mark. I already knew it was working because I saw the 10 points up here. But over on this console, you can see up here that it's still thinking and creating it. Okay, so now we're going to do a private net, and we're going to set that up in the command line. So they're going to give us the commands to run. We could have copied them and edited them from the equivalent command line button before, but okay, we're going to make a custom network called private net. Paste that. Once that's done, then we're going to create the subnet. Network subnet, create private subnet US in the private net network, and we'll set it to region US Central. It's so convenient to do it this way. Okay, so that network was created. It was a regional custom. Okay, paste it and run it. And then we're going to make the EU subnet for the European Union. Okay, that one completed just fine. Now we'll do the one for the EU. Now they gave us 10 points already. So now we're at 20 points, but I didn't even click to check my progress yet. But it looks like they already knew. So that's going to finish. And then we're going to list the VPC networks with this command. The output looks a little bit different the last time I ran it anyway. I'll make this window bigger and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Paste in this gcloud compute networks list command. And that gives us the list of our networks, default, management net, my network, and private net. So it looks different than this. So the output has changed since they made this lab. Now, run the following command to list the subnets. Okay, now this is going to list the subnets, but it's going to sort them by which network they're part of. Okay, we can do that instead of just putting them there kind of randomly. Oh my gosh, there's so many subnets. Now, ones that we set up are ones like private subnet US, private subnet EU. You can see those two, the last two we just created. And this also, the format has changed since the lab was created. Okay, now we're going to go to the navigation menu, VPC network, VPC networks, and we're going to see these networks in there. Well, if we want to see them in this screen, we should refresh. And then that's going to load them into this window here. Once it's done, then we can scroll down and see them. Let's see. Actually, they're there already. And look, we've got 50 points now. We're doing awesome. Okay, now let's create the firewall rules we need. So that's on the VPC network on the firewall button. There's a firewall button right here. This is still loading data though. Wait a moment for that to load. And then after that's loaded, then I'm going to click this firewall button. All right, I'm impatient. I'm going to click X and close that. And then I'm going to click the firewall button anyway. Okay, and then we can see the current firewall rules that are there, and they're probably going to have us create a new firewall rule. And yes, they are. So we're going to allow SSH, which is secure shell, which lets us talk to servers securely. ICMP, which is ping, or used for ping and other purposes, and RDP, traffic. Ingress means inbound, like from the outside world into those servers. So we're going to allow SSH, ICMP, and RDP inbound traffic to the virtual machines on the management net network. Okay, so create that firewall rule. They've got a name for us to use. They didn't give us the description, so we're going to skip description. The network is management net. I think we can just click that. Yeah. All instances in the network. Where's that? Targets. Specified? No, all instances. Oh, there you go. So change targets to all instances. Okay. Source filter, IPv4 ranges 0.0.0.0/0. That means all. That's shorthand to say all. Okay, did that. Now the protocols, it says check TCP. So check the TCP checkbox and then type in 22, space 3389. Okay, 22, space 3389. That's the port for SSH and the port for RDP. And then check the protocol type ICMP. Other protocols, ICMP. And make sure that /0 is there. And yes, it is. Okay, now I'll hit create. Oh, no, I won't hit create yet. I'll scroll down farther and I'll click on equivalent command line. So this is the command that's the same as doing these steps in the user interface. So it's going to, for our project, it's going to create a firewall rule. There's the name of the rule for inbound traffic. And on the management net, we're going to allow port 22 and 3389 and the ICMP protocol from any site at all that's using IPv4 addresses. Looks good. So now we're going to hit close and then create. Now check my progress. I'll pretty quickly update to show a little bit more points. It hasn't updated yet, but it will soon. Now, create the firewall rules for private net using the cloud shell command line. Okay, so I'll copy this command. So this looks pretty similar to the rule we just created for the management net, but this is about private net. So just showing us another way to do the same thing. Paste this in. I'll hit enter. And that also is allowing the same things. Port 22 and 3389 and the ICMP protocol allow. And that was fast. Okay, and now we're getting 65 points. So it's catching up with us. Now I'll check my progress on this one, and we'll see if that number goes up even farther. The next thing to do is we're going to take a look at the firewall rules. Now, this format, again, is different than the format that it's going to show us now. See, now there's more of a vertical format instead of this format in their example that was more horizontal. You can see the different rules. So some default ones, here's one that we created, and here's another that we created right there. Okay, now we're at 80 points out of 100. We're doing great. Now we're going to create the virtual machines, and then we'll start to test connectivity between them. So one of them will create in the graphical way, and the other one will create with the command line. So for the graphical one, we'll go to the Compute Engine VM instances in the Cloud Console. So navigation menu, Compute Engine, VM instances. Compute Engine, VM instances. There you go. Okay, there's already 2 there. And it says those 2 have already been created for you. And those were on the network diagram already. Now we're going to click Create Instance. That button, though, isn't showing up. My screen is too skinny. So what you do is, and that's because I'm trying to share the screen between both I'm going to try to have 2 windows side by side here. Now I'm going to click to close this panel over in the top right, and that'll get me a little more space. I saw it for a second. The button was there. Now I'm going to hide this info panel. But the button I'm really looking for is under this 3 dots, unless I make the window wider. When the window's wide enough, look, there's Create Instance. So if you are looking for a button and it's not there, check it for the 3-dot menu, and it's probably going to be in there. Now, if I put it to be skinny again, now it's moved into that 3-dot menu. So normally it would be here. Now it's in the 3-dot menu instead. So I'll click on Create Instance, and I'll get this done. So the instance name is supposed to be ManagementNet US VM, and not just Instance 1. So change that. And make sure you don't have any extra spaces at the front or the back. Okay. Region US Central 1, and the zone Central 1F. So that's Iowa, and that's already loaded in, actually. So if yours say something different, adjust them to say Central 1 and Central 1F. Okay. Now they want us to use an N1 F1 micro. So the series is kind of the first generation and second generation of servers that they're letting us use in Google Cloud. Choose N1. And then instead of a standard one, we're going to get a F1 micro that has less memory and also costs a lot less. See, $4.88 per month, about 1 cent per hour, compared to the last one we were looking at was like $25 per month. Okay, let's see. So we're going to hit Networking, Disks, Security Management, and Sole Tenancy. Let's scroll down a ways to get to that. That's this one here. Click on this, and now there's a networking section. Hit the drop down on the networking section, and then we're going to go down to network interfaces. And it says to click the drop down to edit. And what they mean by that is this toggle here. Okay, now we've got edit network interface. And we want to change network to ManagementNet. Oh, there we go. And the subnet to Management Subnet US. And yep, that's right. So now scroll down and hit done. And then we're going to take a look at what the equivalent command line is. Oh my gosh, that's quite the command line. But that goes and creates a server for us, a virtual machine, in a certain network, in a certain project, in a certain zone, with a certain machine type. So many details, all handled automatically for us. So that's cool. And that's what it would look, that's the one we're going to do in the management net. And then we'll do the private net one similar to that by using the command line. Now I'll check my progress, but it's not going to work yet because I didn't click create. So I'll click create. And that's going to be working for a bit. It's not done yet, but they still gave us the points because they could see that it was in progress. So that's still being worked on. Now, in the meantime, let's go down and check what it says to do next. And it says we need to create another virtual machine. So I'll do that down here. That one's finished. And now we've got 85 points. The next one is on its way, being created, and now it's done. Check my progress. Maybe that'll get us to 90 points. Might take a moment for their process to see that one. But we did get the check mark, so I know it's there. Now, next we need to list them out and see all the different servers. Now I'm going to make a lot of space. I'm going to make this screen really big, and I'll paste in the command. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the format is still different, and now we're at 90 points. So we're doing great. The format's a little different now. And we can see the same thing if we go to the Compute Engine VM instances. Now there's 3. If I click to refresh right here, then it'll double check and it'll find that 4th one. Later, we're going to create one more. Now it says column display options, select network, and then click OK. So column display options, that is this 3 bars that are vertical over here. Click on that and then scroll down to network and then hit OK. Now I can't see it on this skinny window though. So scroll over and now you can see these internal IPs and network, external IPs and the network. So you can see which network these virtual machines are on. So we've got servers in US and in Europe working for us, and they're across 3 different networks. But none of the instances are in the same zones as another. So on the next part, we're going to test and figure out what that means for us. So we're going to test the connectivity between the different virtual machines. Okay. So we're going to connect from one of the virtual machines to another, at least we're going to try to. So we're in VM instances. They want us to look at the external IP addresses for MyNet EU VM, US VM, and PrivateNet US VM. Okay, those are these addresses here, these 35, 34, 35, 34 ones. For the MyNet US VM, click SSH. Which one's that? Scroll over. MyNet US VM, that's this one. Click SSH. That opens a new window. And I'll hit connect. So we want to use that window. Okay, what does it say we need to do with that window? We need to run the following command, but replace the MyNet EU VM external IP. So we're going to do a ping. Now, I'm just going to type in the ping command part of it. And let's see, the MyNet EU VM. So which one's that one? The MyNet EU VM is the second one on the list. And the external IP address right here. I'm going to copy that, this 34 one. So ping-c3 space. And notice I didn't put a space because it's not required. They use a space in their example, but you don't need one. Now I'll paste in the address. Hit enter. That's going to run ping command 3 times. And it's going to send a signal with ICMP protocol to that server, and then it's going to get a response back. These took 103 milliseconds each. So there and back, there and back, there and back. And that's okay, but it could be faster. But that's because it's going all the way to Europe that it takes so long. So we tried that. This should work, and it did. Now, test connecting from to the management net US VM. Okay, so same command, different IP address we're going to test with. Okay, so management net, US VM, that's the top one. Copy that external address. Control V to paste that, by the way. Or you can type it in again. Now that's really fast. 1.8 milliseconds, 1.5 milliseconds, 1.88 milliseconds. So that worked. Okay, and now we want to test connecting to the external IP of private net US VM. Private net US VM, that's the bottom one. Copy that. Now where'd my other window go? I'll hit Alt-Tab to get to that other window. Okay, so now I want to ping C3, paste in. Also fast. There you go. So being on the same network is a good thing. Now we ping to the external IP addresses of all of them, even though they're in different zones or VPC networks. So the public can connect to them based on the ICMP firewall rules that we set up earlier. Now we're going to try ping the internal addresses. Okay, so same thing. The internal IPs, those will be the ones in this column here. This column here. So we need to do the one for MyNet US VM. And from there, we're going to connect to MyNet EU VM. MyNet EU virtual machine. Now, are you seeing a lot of IP addresses and starting to wonder, why do we need so many IP addresses? Right? It's because we're doing networking. And networking deals with a lot of IP addresses and network addressing in general. And you'll learn more about that as you learn about networking in general. But networking in Google Cloud is very similar to just general networking. There's some neat things that they do, but most of the things function just like you would use on any virtual machine or any server. Okay, so I'm going to do a ping command, -C3 again, paste in the internal address that they told us, the one for the MyNet EU VM, and that's this one, the one that ends in 164.0.2, and I'll hit enter. 100 milliseconds again, because it's going all the way to Europe and back. Okay, the next one is Management Net US VM. That's in the same, there, the top one, that's in the same data center probably, or at least the same general area. So this one will be fast also. Ping -C3, and then paste in that IP address, 130.0.2, that one. Oh no, that didn't work. This should not work, indicated by 100% packet loss. Well, we've got to learn why that happened. Now they're going to have us try the same thing with private net. So probably they're going to teach us that you can't get from the inside of one of those networks to the inside of another one of those networks if you're not part of that same subnet. And that's kind of the point that they're making here. So now we're going to try private net US VM's internal address. Private net US VM is the bottom one, and there's the internal address. Ping-C3, paste that in, and it's also going to fail. It'll take a couple seconds to do so. So the VPC networks are by default isolated private networking domains. So no internal IP address communication is allowed between the networks unless you set up mechanisms like VPC peering or a VPN to connect them. So it also failed, 100% packet loss. And it took 2 seconds plus to figure it out. So let's see what this says. Which instances should you be able to ping from the MyNet US VM using internal IP addresses? Well, MyNet. So from a MyNet VM to a MyNet VM should work, but to private net and management net should not. Success. Okay, so let's make an instance of VM that has multiple network interfaces. This is the cool one that we saw up top that has 3 different network interfaces. So to do that, we're going to go to the Compute Engine VM instances and we'll make one with 4 CPUs. Why 4? Because they only let you make the number of interfaces based on how many processors the virtual machine has. So what we're going to do is we're going to VM instances, and we're going to create an instance, That's on that 3-dot menu, kind of hidden, isn't it? And we'll copy the name, VM instance, paste. Region is right, the zone is right, US Central 1, series 1, N1, okay? And then the type will be an N1 standard 4. N1 standard 4, right there, with 4 CPUs and 15 gigs of memory. Okay, now we go down to networking, disks, security management. That scrolls down quite a ways to get there. There it is. And networking is the first section. We click the down arrow and then scroll down to the network interfaces. Under network interfaces, we hit the drop down. Okay, private net and private subnet. Private net, private subnet. And we hit done on that one. But this one's going to have 3 network interfaces. So we're going to add another network interface with this add network interface button. Now the second one's going to be on management net. Okay, done. The third one is going to be on my network. Done. So now we've got 3 different network interfaces on this server. We're going to hit done down at the bottom, what we did, and then we'll hit create. That'll get us some more points, and we'll check our progress. Okay, the points didn't show up yet because it's still busy making this server. Now, we're going to try connecting from that one. Oh, cool. Okay, so we're going to double check that the networking stuff is set up right, and then we're going to go try it out. So let's go to the VM instances page. Okay, VM instance, VM appliance, and what do they want us to do? Click NIC 0 within the internal IP address of VM appliance. So VM appliance is the bottom. We'll scroll over. There's that NIC 0, network interface card 0. There's 0, 1, 2. They count from 0, just like how the years start from 0. There wasn't a first year until after you finished a whole year, then you got to the first year. So you start with the 0th year. So it's a 0-based numbering system. So the first one, 0, is on private net. The next one, NIC 1, is on management net. And the third one, NIC 2, is on my network. That's exactly what we wanted to see. So I've checked those. Now we're going to log into that VM appliance using SSH. Now, if you still have an SSH window from before, now is a good time to close that one. Okay. Now we're going to go back to the VM instances page, VM appliance, SSH button. So we'll click that to SSH into the VM appliance so that we can work as if we're on that server. Yes, we want to connect. All right, now it says sudo ifconfig. All right, that lets us run an administrative command, and that's to see the configuration of the different network interfaces. And here you can see 4 network interfaces, but we only created 3. This fourth one, LO, localhost, that means like myself, like my own, it's a loopback address, and that represents the network card itself. So you can send a message within the server back to itself. The other ones all connect to outside networks. So we've got one that's connected to each of the 3, MyNet, management net, and private net. So it looks generally like this, but this server doesn't use ETH. This server uses ENS. Different servers sometimes use different naming formats for that. I've worked with Solaris servers before, and they look different than the way that Linux ones looked on their address lists of network interfaces and things. Okay, so now we're going to try connecting. So we SSH'd in, and we're going to SSH from that appliance, we'll SSH to that appliance, and then we're going to connect with ping again to private net US VM internal IP. Okay, ping ping-c3 private net US VM internal. And this is something we couldn't do before from there. Private net US VM, it's the fourth one down. There's the internal IP, and there's the little copy to clipboard button. Click that. That's so convenient. And then Control V to paste. Hit enter, and we pinged just fine. And it's super fast. Look at that. Look at that. That was really, really fast. So that's amazing. That works. Now we're going to try to do the same thing with this command. Wait a second. How does that work? And then they explain right here in the instructions that they're running a special DNS service that lets you address instances by their DNS name instead of having to look up their IP addresses. So they've got a little trick for us. So I'm going to paste this command in and run it. And there it goes. It did the same thing. And that was excellent. Okay. Now let's try to connect to the management net US VM internal IP. Ping-c3 management net US VM internal IP. And that works too. Now mynet US VM. And notice we're at 100 points. So we've completed what they want us to complete that they're testing us on, but we want to do more than just pass. We want to complete all of the challenges they have for us. So what was the last one I did? Last one I did was 131. What's the 131? That's management net. Okay, so we did that one. The next one is the mynet US VM internal IP. Mynet US VM internal IP right there. Oops. Okay. And that's going to be ping C3. Paste that in. And that worked also. The last one is mynet EU VM. Ping C3. Mynet EU VM is this one here. Second on the list there. And there's the internal IP. I will hit copy. I'll come over and paste that. Well, that one isn't working. Now there's going to be a good reason for that, and they're going to explain down there. If you've got multiple interfaces, every interface gets a route for the subnet that it's in, and the instance gets a single default route that's associated with the primary interface, ETH0. If you don't configure it manually otherwise, though, any traffic leaving is going to leave out that same route. Let's list the different routes with the IP route command. Looks like their example, with the difference that the devices have a different name, otherwise, naming system, but otherwise it looks fine. So the primary network interface gets the default route, and all three interfaces get routes for their respective subnets. But the subnet for the mynet EU VM wasn't included in the routing table. So pinging that isn't going to work. So you could use policy routing. And look at that. We reached congratulations. We got done the things we needed to get done. And now we've got one lab that counts for 3 because it counts towards 3 different badges. So let's see, we created custom VPC networks, firewall rules, virtual machine instances. We did so many things. And it only took us less than an hour, I think it was. Yeah, well less than an hour to do so. And we got a lot of progress. We did so many different things. I'm going to leave this window here, and I'm going to go back down to that summary at the end. What else did we do? We tested the connectivity between different networks by being inside of the network, and also by having a machine that's outside that's connected to that network with multiple network cards. So we did all kinds of things to learn about and to get more familiar with networking. and some of the places that you'll have to go in the interface to work with networks. Things like when you create a VM, you'll set up the networking information. When you want to see networking stuff in here, you'll go to this column selection and you'll add a checkbox for network and then hit OK. When you are working on the VPCs, you'll do that under the VPC networks section. And all kinds of things we got a chance to try out, and I'm happy you did with us here at the School of Cloud this week. So that's what we've got, and now it's time to close it down. So we'll close this, and then on here we'll make this full screen again. I'll hit End Lab. I'm going to hit Submit, and then I'll set it to 5. I'll say Great Lab. One thing, some of the screenshots could be updated. Okay, I'll hit Submit. Thanks for reviewing the lab. Now let's go back to our quest. So we've got done the first 2 labs in the quest. Next week, we'll do the next 2 labs, and then we'll finish with the last 2 labs the week after. And that'll be enough for you to earn this completion badge, Networking in Google Cloud, that you can put onto your LinkedIn. And as you can see, I'll be finishing this one also. Thanks again for attending the School of Cloud. Now check out some of our other videos. And see you back next time.